Abe gave Bart a box he had been keeping for years. When Bart opened it, he discovered it actually contained a grenade. What's more, Abe had already pulled the pin. Bart was so scared he hid under the table, but it turned out to be just one of Abe's pranks. So, while Abe was fast asleep, Bart took the grenade from Abe's hand and brought it to the school assembly. There, in front of everyone, he pulled the pin on the grenade. Skinner was so terrified he wet himself right then and there. Chaos erupted instantly. In his panic, Milhouse crawled into a costume to hide. At the critical moment, Flanders lunged toward the grenade. But the very next second, everyone realized it was just one of Bart's pranks. So the teachers all turned on Bart, and even his best friend Milhouse was no exception. As a result, the school immediately decided to expel Bart. Just then, Flanders stepped forward and offered to take responsibility for disciplining and reforming Bart. But Chalmers insisted on expelling Bart. Seeing that it was no use, Flanders threatened to post Chalmers' contact information in the church group chat. In the end, Chalmers had no choice but to compromise. But in exchange,
if you supervise this boy, keeping him away from the baleful presence of his father.
Woo! Win-win!
Bart was placed entirely under Flanders' supervision. From then on, Flanders began to keep Bart in line. First, he had Bart help with the dishes and household chores, but Bart pretended to cut himself with a knife and squeezed out red ketchup to prank Flanders. Left with no other option,
What did you say?
Flanders took Bart out on a boat for some fishing in the wild. Bart spent the entire time cursing and complaining until he finally managed to catch a fish. Only then did he stop complaining. Flanders planned to grill the fish right there. He personally demonstrated how to start a fire by rubbing sticks together for Bart, then patiently guided him until he successfully got the fire going. This gave Bart a tremendous sense of accomplishment. Before long, Bart turned into a well-behaved child. Everyone praised Flanders for this, which made Homer extremely jealous of him.
Hey, you can't give them all the credit. We're the ones who messed him up in the first place.
To prove he was a capable father, Homer volunteered to help Bart with his homework. As it turned out, he couldn't solve a single problem. He even deliberately threw Bart's homework to the dog to chew on. But to his surprise, the dog returned it completely intact. Bart even bluntly stated that Flanders had already helped him finish his homework. Upon hearing this, Homer could only walk away in defeat. Homer then wandered the streets alone, feeling desolate, and eventually made his way straight to the dump. There, he happened to run into Nelson, who was crying alone. After hearing about Nelson's tragic upbringing, Homer had a sudden idea. He planned to use Nelson to get back at Bart. From then on, Homer spent a lot of time with Nelson. Not only did he take him to a burger joint for a meal, but he also deliberately showed up while Bart and Flanders were making prayer hands to teach Nelson how to ride a bike.
Nelson already knew how to ride a bike.
He even went so far as to deliberately create a close father-son atmosphere, but unexpectedly tripped and fell flat on his face. In the end, he had no choice but to hurriedly leave with Nelson. Watching Homer and Nelson get along so well, Bart's eyes filled with disappointment. Lisa, who had witnessed the whole thing, took out all her savings to pay for Homer to see a therapist. After being scolded and counseled by the therapist, Homer finally realized how despicable it was to use Nelson to get back at Bart.
Hey, Homer, honey. Come on, spend a minute with Mom.
Look, lady, I'm not interested in... What the...
I know, you're just spending time with my son to make your son jealous. Sooner or later, you're gonna leave him like all the rest.
So he immediately found Nelson and confessed all his ulterior motives. Upon learning the truth, Nelson completely broke down.
Not Bart! I do love him!
Determined to get revenge on Bart, first, he hid in a cabin to devise his plan of revenge. On the day of the parade, Nelson pressed the buttons for every floor in the elevator and went to the hallway of a high-rise building to choose an ambush spot. After setting up the trap, when Bart passed beneath the praying hands sculpture, Nelson flipped the switch and prepared to trap Bart in the mechanism. At the last possible moment, Homer selflessly rushed forward to push Bart out of the way, but he himself was struck by the trap. Homer was immediately loaded into an ambulance.